Welcome back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drew B. Wilson. With more than 2 decades in sales, I've seen it, been through it, heard about it. Now I'm bringing it to you, my favorite people in the world, the sales community. Because let's be honest, this is the greatest job on earth. Doesn't matter where you come from, what background, what personality type, you can create an amazing life in sales. And today's guest is no stranger to the journey. I'd like to welcome Christopher Filipiak. How are you doing, sir?
Drew B, so good to be here with you today. I've been looking forward to this show all week today and excited to jump in with like another sales master here.
Hey, well, I appreciate the kind words, and I want to jump right in, man. I want to hear your crazy sales story.
Yeah, for sure. I was actually thinking about that today, and I have a relevant crazy sales story from yesterday. So that I just want to share with the audience, because I was laughing to myself because I work with so many CEOs who are totally resistant to cold calling and calling the damn leads, right? Like, just totally resistant. I'm like, hey, let's just call some damn leads, right? And they're like, no way, I'm not doing it. They're like, there's no way that I'm ever effing calling people. And it tends to be one of like the most successful channels that I use. One, because it's effective. Like, talking to people is where the money is, and it's how you help people. And also, it just shows you where all of your sales shit actually is, like where you need to do some of the inner work. So I call the damn leads like every day. And yesterday I was just making some calls, and I called 3 people, had 2 conversations, 2 completions, booked 2 calls for today, right? Intro calls, and then had the 2 intro calls today, and then booked those into sales conversations or discovery calls for the next 2 days. And it was like 10 minutes of calling yesterday, right? And I just think like it's just so interesting when you line up your mindset and you line up the right strategy and tactic, and then you actually do the activity in a way that works. It just can be a really beautiful and enjoyable and profitable way to outreach and help people. So that's my story. It's short, but that's something that just happened. And it happens almost every week for me.
It's so interesting to me how I chat with a lot of CEOs and business owners, and you're right. They're very resistant to picking up the phone, to calling the damn leads. And a lot of times I'll ask, like I had one couple weeks back, and her and I got on a call. She had bought some of my digital products and was, I was doing my part, practicing what we preach. And she's like, well, I just don't want to bother anybody. And I was like, well, I respect that, right? None of us want to be a bother. And also, it's not like you're just randomly calling people out of the phone book. You're the CEO of a company who has proprietary data, and you're the only person with the patents to actually offer this, this package. And there's no one else in the world who can explain it as well as you do. And she was like, yeah, that's true. And I was like, so you're not really bothering anyone. You're offering them an opportunity to partner with the number one person in the world who can help them solve their problem. And she's like, yeah, but I still don't want to call them. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, you offer a very high multi-6-figure product, and you want to delegate it to somebody that's young and has no idea how it actually works. And it's just mind-blowing to me how the people who are responsible for the company's success don't want to do the thing that's going to help them be successful. And it happens so often.
Yeah, that speaks some real confusion and lack of awareness around what calling and serving and helping and loving on people really is. One of the things that I always tell my CEOs that I'm working with, I'm like, hey, you need to call people. And they're like, there's no way, I'm just not doing it. And then like, who knows what the story is in their subconscious that they agree to. Don't want to be a bother. It doesn't work. I want to outsource my 6-figure deals to an overseas SDR who I can pay $4 an hour. And I'm like, Really? Like that's what you want the first touch point with your six-figure clients to be? Are you sure about that? And I just usually just tell them that they're being selfish. I'll just be like, man, you're being so selfish. And they're like, what are you talking about, Christopher? I'm like, man, you have all this good stuff to the world. You started a business to get it out there, and you're just holding it all to yourself. Because there's actually people out there who need and want and can benefit from what you've created. Like the CEO you were working with, like she's number one in the world at her stuff. She can have real impact and change people's lives. And she's like, well, I'm just uncomfortable, so I'm not going to do it. She's going to let her subconscious win, and she's going to prioritize her own comfort and safe illusion of safety over actually helping the world. Selfish.
It's yeah, and you want to be kind and empathetic because you don't want to just be like you're selfish. But
Sure.
sometimes you got to have those hard conversations, and one of the hardest conversations that I've had to have with small business owners is explaining to them that hiring a sales team is not necessarily the solution to their revenue problems. And I know that's something you dive deep on. You want to share a little bit of your insight on that?
Yeah, definitely. So, um, almost every CEO I've talked to, Drewby, and worked with, and I've worked with hundreds of them, want to scale, and so they're like, I'm just going to hire salespeople. And on average, they fire 3.25 sales people, and the cost of that per failed salesperson is upwards of $400,000 per failed sales person. And then they're all back. I just spoke to the CEO today, this afternoon, right before this call, and I said, uh, built out a sales team, got himself out of sales for 2 years, 3 years, right? Was in sales for the first 8 years, like leading sales for the first 8 years of his business. He's like, nope, I'm done with that. Too uncomfortable, won't work, want to scale in a different way. Hired a salespeople. Salespeople didn't work out. I'm on the phone with him. He's like, man, I got to start doing my own sales work again because our revenue is down. And I'm like, I'm not anti-sales people, right? I love salespeople, but I think for most small businesses, most mid-market, small enterprise firms, everyone I've seen that continues to grow and really help people, the CEO is involved in sales. It doesn't mean that they're cold calling all day, but they're doing really high level business development. They're working on multiple 6 and 7 figure deals. And I think if you're a CEO, an owner, a founder, you're just going to be involved in sales every day. I think it's just a really real amazing vehicle to create what you want when you want and stay in touch with what's actually required. The reason why salespeople don't work out is usually, I mean, either the salesperson's just bad, like they don't have the skill, but they could be trained up, um, you know. But typically, what's happened is there's something that's missing or not working in the business's sales operation, right? Like even the best salespeople, if the fundamentals aren't there, if you don't have clarity on who your people are, and you don't have good messaging, and you don't have an offer that resonates, and you don't have a consistent way to create conversations, and you don't have a sales process that leads to new clients, the best salespeople in the world can't overcome something that's fundamentally wrong with the structure of the sales operation. And that's why most salespeople fail. It's just because there's something missing in the sales readiness of the business.
Yeah, a lot of times, and this I can even speak to from my own business, right? I was in a corporation for many years, was one of the top producers, got into the C-suite side of things, and started kind of training sales guys. And the biggest thing that I run into in every small business and CEO that wants to scale out of sales, all of the processes are in their mind. None of them are on paper. None of them are clearly explained in microwave style directions. It's like step one, step two, step three. There's this whole like spider web of 15 to 20 years of experience having the conversations and being in the field. And then, as you mentioned earlier, they want to outsource it to somebody for $5 an hour or a commission only salesperson who has maybe some experience in the industry, but definitely doesn't have the number of repetitions that the business owner has, nor do they have the same passion. And it's so hard to get people to get out of their own way long enough to like get that stuff out of their head and get it on paper. And I'd be interested your perspective on like how often do you also run into that same scenario where it's like, oh man, yeah, we've got a sales process, and it's like call the lead and sell them some shit.
That was like my W-2 sales job, right? So I was an engineer at Ford Motor Company, doing continuous improvement and setting up manufacturing plants, building F-150s and Mustangs. And you can imagine like the level of maturity around their processes and their systems that like a 150-year-old manufacturing business has, right? Like it's pretty mature in that regard. And the then I worked at a $40 million consultancy, and they didn't have the same level of sophistication, right? But they were we're $40 million business, right? But we didn't have any sales process. We didn't even use a CRM, right? The CEO did 25% of the business's revenue, which meant like, and I remember they were like, that was literally what they told me. They're like, hey, you're smart, like go sell some shit. That was it. That was like, I was just out of like MBA school, and I'm like, um, right? And I was like, wow, what is that? I don't even understand. They're like, yeah, just walk around, talk to people, sell some shit. There was no process, no systems at all. And it doesn't mean that you have to have totally built out stuff, but man, it's so much easier when there's something in place to use and drive and have there. But the other thing is like every CEO, it's funny you mentioned commission only, but every CEO is like, thinks they're like a sales master, right? They'll say things like, I can sell ice to an Eskimo, or they'll be like, man, if you can just put me in the room with the right lead, like I'll close them every time, baby. And I'm like, yeah, if you're in the right room with the right person and they're there and, like everything's all lined up. And I'm like, it's not just about like closing. It's about sales mastery is about being able to create the money you want whenever you need and want it and not having any resistance. Right. And so you need to be able to create conversations and know how to have conversations. And that requires a process, and business development and sales and adding revenue and adding profit. That whole ecosystem is a system of systems. And if any part of that is missing, the whole thing doesn't work. And so if you do decide to bring in salespeople, or you want to make sure that they're scaling something that's already working and documented, not trying to figure out how to make something work, because they're too valuable in terms of what they're willing to do and their talent as sales people to be like building the race car, building the sales engine. You want to have that stuff built, working, prototyped, figured out, and then bring in someone to help you run it and scale. And that's where you need some documentation. You need some process. You just need some process. So.
Yeah, I always liken it to let's say you're like an Instagram bro, right? You have a fancy Lamborghini and you've got this really nice car, and you wouldn't just let any old 16-year-old with a license hop into your Lamborghini and drive it around. You're gonna like, no. I don't know about that. And yet this is how a lot of small business owners treat their business. They have a Lamborghini and they just bring in any goofball off the street to just jump in and take control. And then when it wrecks, they get mad. They're like, well, why aren't you closing more deals? And how come we're not making any money? And it's like, well, because I don't know how to drive a Lamborghini, right? Maybe I'm too big. Maybe I don't know how all the buttons work. They're different. It's not just your regular everyday hop in and drive it type situation. However, it's hard to find a skilled race car driver, right? If you have a sales professional who's dialed in and an expert at what they do, you're either paying them significantly well to come in and race your machine for you, or you're having to teach them to drive along the way. And
Mhm.
like you mentioned, it's a lack of systems and processes that keeps people stuck on that hamster wheel. It's the fact that there's no CRM in a business that's doing multiple seven figures, which sometimes I hear that and I'm just absolutely mind blown by the fact that they're still running it out of an Excel sheet or like a little black book. And also the businesses that we see scale quickly and effectively and then make a real exit, because you don't build a business to have a job forever. You build a business to be able to make either a living from or to exit from so that you can move on to the next thing. But every single one of them has, I call them microwave directions type processes, where you could pretty much pull anybody off the street, sit them down, and know within a calculable reason what to expect out of every conversation. So I know you have something like the sales ready organization framework. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when I started my business, I just went around to all the CEOs that I knew and said, "Hey, can I sell for you on a fractional basis?" I called it business development as a service. And, I went from working at Ford to working at these small boutique consulting firms and marketing agencies. So there was a big difference in terms of the maturity and the level of process. A lot of those businesses said, "Hey, you can sell for me, but it's a be commission only." Okay. And I started to understand what made a good commission only sales opportunity versus not. And it was the level of sophistication and maturity in the organization and how much risk I would have to take on as a salesperson versus how much risk the company would have to take on with me, and trying to get that balance right. That's what a commission only deal is. The company has no risk and the salesperson has all the risk, right? Um, so I was like, cool, yeah, I'll do that if you have this, and this, right? And so I started to really understand what needed to be in place from a market messaging, offer, enablement perspective to allow me to sell for businesses successfully. And as I looked and researched and studied and did assessments of these businesses, I really started to understand kind of what those fundamental building blocks were to build the sales race car, if you will. And that over time became the sales ready organization framework, which has five main pillars: mindset, leadership, marketing, sales, and project management. Most people know about sales and marketing, or marketing sales. Most of them know about leadership, but almost all of them are missing mindset as a core competency for a sales organization. And almost all of them don't have project management, meaning they're not looking at their own sales operations as a systematic continuous improvement effort and going like, hey, every month, or we need to work on our sales operations. We need to have projects and be improving as a sales organization, and put a project manager in charge of that for their own business. And so that's been the core of that. And I've been refining that since I really started my business. And like, I know, I can look at a business and go like, hey, this is what you're doing great. This is what you're missing. And here's some stuff you just don't even have to do anymore. Right. And I think that's my favorite part, is to look at a business and look at where they're wasting time or spending time and dollars and money and resources trying to drive revenue and profit, or grow revenue and profit. And I can come in and just be like, look, like, you don't even have to do that. Like, let's just stop doing that, because it's not leading to what you want. So, and it's like, that's from my engineering days, where we would do like value stream mapping. We would like lay out a process and go like, okay, what's actually contributing to the final outcome? And when you think about it, this is like a little bit of like nerdy engineering stuff, but like the biggest of the wastes in manufacturing is overproduction. It's meaning you're doing stuff that you don't actually need to be doing. And in sales and in marketing, there's so much overproduction, right? It's like, and the example goes back to I called 3 people yesterday and booked 2 conversations. And like, there's organizations that call hundreds and hundreds of people all day long and have nowhere near that result, and it's because I know, like, I understand how to do that. I have tools in place that help me do that, and I know my people really, really well. And when you do those things, you can stop wasting your time, like calling irrelevant people or doing stuff that just doesn't make any sense.
It's
Because
always go ahead.
let me share one more thing. Also, like, back to your CEO, it's also because you're picking strategies and tactics that are comfortable, meaning they're coming from a place of fear. It's like, I'm afraid to cold call, so I'm going to find something that's more comfortable to me, but it isn't necessarily the cause of the effect that you actually want, right? So you end up building sales processes. Examples like proposal writing. Like, I don't teach any of my clients to write proposals. I don't. I'm like, but people waste so much time. They're like, oh, well, we're going to have to figure out writing proposals, right? And so then we'll build a sales process that is like proposal or this or this or this. And like, none of that's required to actually help people and make a sale.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me, when I'm chatting with our consulting clients and I'm going, all right, well, how much of the salesperson's job is also business development and marketing? Because salespeople are salespeople, they're not marketers. And yet, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, these small businesses, they want to hire someone on with the expectation that they know how to go and generate their own leads. They know how to get out there and find the people who actually want to do business, the client avatar, if you will. And a lot of times they're like, man, I don't know. I thought you would have those people. I thought I was coming to sell your product to the people that actually wanted it. And if you don't have a clear distinction between what's the marketing, what's the sales, and ultimately the expectation of, hey, when we bring in a lead for you, this is the process that you're going to follow. And that's why I think a lot of sales professionals in those small businesses fail, because they're like, well, I don't know. I got to go and find the leads. And, I don't really know what the avatar is at all. So I'm kind of just trying to sell everybody with a credit card and a pulse that I think might want to do business with us. And like you said, when it's more hyper targeted and you say, hey, we specifically help business owners that are doing $1 to $3 million a year, that have at least 5 people on staff, and they're in XYZ industry, right? Home services or merchant processing or insurance or real estate, whatever that ends up being, it's a lot easier to spend your time, energy, and effort on things that actually matter versus spinning your wheels on stuff that'll never see the light of day. Processes that mean nothing. Conversations with people that are going nowhere forever, even though they constantly want to chat with you, they think you're cool, but they're never going to do business with you. And so I'd be curious, like, how do you get these small business owners that are overwhelmed by all of this to like really start understanding the value of driving the sales in their business, and like what are the first steps that they should take there?
You mean driving the value themselves
Yeah,
and
I mean,
kind of,
because like they're kind of in charge at the first. So like, how do you get them to get out of the driver's seat and then passing that off to the person who can ultimately be responsible?
yeah. Could you ask the question again so I can give
Yeah.
you
So like,
sure?
let's say the business owner, they're personally responsible for driving all of the company sales. What are the
Okay.
practical first steps that they can take to build out that confidence in their sales team to see results?
Okay. I think that I think the first thing they should do is they should learn to master sales themselves and be able to like create a shit ton of money in their business, meaning, whatever that is. I talk about adding 1 million plus in revenue in the next 6 months, right? Or consistently adding clients at a level that allows you to be spinning off extra cash, right? So that's the first step. It's like, oh shit, I'm a CEO, I'm a business owner. I need to master sales, right? So that I really understand that. So when I decide to stand up a sales team, I have two things. I have the cash to do it because it's not an inexpensive thing to do, to pay really good salespeople. They're going to be expensive, right? And you want a salespeople. And you don't introduce a culture of like sales fear or lack of competence because you've mastered sales. You know what a good sales effort looks like. And the last piece is like making sure you have those systems and processes, like what I call being sales ready, just making sure you have competence as a business. Like you've built a business that's competent at creating and having sales conversations and then bringing in the sales people. So those are, I guess that's my 3-part recommendation. Master sales yourself, build out a sales ready organization, and then hire the salespeople, right? And I think if you do those things in that order, you could maybe do them in parallel, but I think it works better in series. I think you set yourself up to be you give yourself the best chance of actually scaling your business in a way that's profitable and makes sense and actually like frees you up. And I think, part of that journey to mastering sales is and I love the example of your CEO that you were working on who didn't want to do calls. Part of that journey is shifting your mindset from sales from a place of fear or an unwillingness into like what I call sales as an expression of love, Drewby, where you're excited, like man, I'm the top person in the world. Like, yeah, I'm going to call a couple people today and say, hey, like I got really good stuff to give you to help you. Right? Are there some things you want changed? Because I really think this could benefit you, right? And you start to get excited about helping people and adding money to your business because that's why you started the business in the first place.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in service-based sales. And, we could probably sit here and nerd out on this topic for the next several hours, but I want to be respectful of your time because I know you're busy. You've got CEOs to call and help get out of this funky mindset that they're in. What's the best way for me and the listeners to come find you, follow you, and check out more of your content?
Yeah, the easiest thing to do is I'd encourage your listeners to take the Sales Ready Organization assessment. Like there's a free mini assessment, so you can take that and you can get some insight into what's happening in your business. I'll share that. I wrote an article about what it means to be sales ready, and the link to the assessment is in that. So I'll give that to you, and if you'll share that out to your audience, I think that could be very valuable. My website is just ChristopherFilipiak.com, and then I'm at LinkedIn.com//Christopher Filipiak. So those are all super easy ways to find me. If you reach out, I'll definitely talk to you.
I love that. I will make sure that we put all those links and everything in the show notes. We'll put it up on our blog page for the episode as well. That way it's easy for people to come find it, check it out. And I just want to say thank you for sharing some of the insights, man. This is the stuff that as you're growing and scaling a business, you don't know what you don't know until you know. And then you have to make a decision on what you're going to do with that information. So this has been a very valuable episode, and I'm excited to see what people take away from it. And again, man, just truly grateful for your time and energy today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on the show. I love to talk about this stuff with, another sales master and get this information out, because not only can sales change your life, it'll change the life of the people you're selling to as well. It is some of the most beautiful work, rewarding work that you can do.
Amen to that. And here's the deal. If you guys enjoyed the episode, share it on social media, tag us, send it to somebody who sucks at sales. Maybe they have a business and you see them floundering and just falling over themselves on the hamster wheel. Send them this episode and help them get better. And if you have a story of your own, we'd love to have you on the show. We're doing 2 episodes a week. We got lots of time to put people's journey and their story out there, because it doesn't matter where you come from, what background, what personality, you can make an amazing life in sales. And it's pretty likely if you've got some awesome stories. So head over to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Send us your information. Let's get you booked in. And more than anything, you guys know what to do. The answer to all your money problems is to call the damn leads. So go do that, and we'll see you guys on the next one.